Is it up?
It's up.
Awesome, you're the best. Thank you.
It locks 1, 2, 3, 4.
Do you mind taking that off? Whichever one you want. All right, cool. What are we doing? There we go. Rachel, can you take that? Thank you. Good morning. So, when we came up for the idea for this panel, and I was pitching it to Katie and Anthony separately, I said, I have an idea, and you're going to want to say no, but we're not going to make any decisions on this phone call. But you're going to listen, and then we're going to hang up and think about it, and I think you're going to like it.
Exactly what happened.
And here they are. So I'm the best salesperson in this room is what I've decided. Katie and Anthony are two people that all of you either know personally or are well aware of, and two people that I have a ton of respect for and have learned a massive amount from. I have never came into this or thought of myself as a leader, and simply absorbed everything I could from the two of them, and have had a million private conversations with them about leadership and leadership styles and the broker community. And I don't want to say they have different perspectives because they don't, but they have had and continue to have incredibly different approaches to leadership and are both insanely effective. And I have found those conversations fascinating. And I thought it would make a lot of sense for everyone to hear a little bit about it from all of us. So first of all, thank you both for coming up here and letting me sell you on it. So I appreciate it.
You finally got Anthony to DC, so I'm
finally
impressed.
got Anthony to DC. I told him the same thing. We had a backup plan in case he didn't show up, though.
Tempting.
But truly, thank you. I want to start out Anthony, you've been a leader of this community and a leader at UMortgage, very much out in the forefront for the last 5 years. Your leadership style, to say it lightly, has evolved deeply over the last 5 years. You have used aggression at certain points to great effect and some controversy as well, but it has changed and evolved, and you're a very different leader at UMortgage than you were 5 years ago. And can you just talk to everyone either whether there was a thought process behind it or how it's felt from your perspective and why you implemented different approaches at different times?
Yeah, so just a show of hands, how many people in here were a broker before 2019? Okay, so we got some old dogs here.
About half.
So you guys know what it was like. Usually I go into a room and most of the people just became brokers in the last couple of years. If you were a broker back then, just landscape-wise is super important to you to have perspective. Is 2017 when I started Brawl, no brokers communicate with each other. There was no Facebook groups, there was no community, there was none of this stuff, okay? There was no big nationwide broker shops. There was no Nexus or Edges or any of those companies. That wasn't a thing then. So when I started it, there was a pain point that I was really passionate about that I was all in on. And to me, as other brokers rallied around that pain point, it just intensified my passion about it. So, there's no playbook for starting a trade association or rallying a group of, independent brokers. But I'll just put it this, is anybody that serves brokers or knows brokers knows this. Getting brokers' attention, extremely hard. Keeping brokers' attention, even harder. Influencing brokers' behavior, nearly impossible. So when I look back at 2017, 2018, it's you had to be loud, you had to be aggressive, and overall, you had to keep giving them red meat because that's what it took to get them to drive change and to show up to things. So very different environment than where we were, where we are today versus then. But I wouldn't say there was a playbook or an approach. It's, it was by any means necessary, and, that's the way it worked.
I love it, and I agree completely. And something that has occurred to me over the years in trying to communicate to the broker community is that the average mortgage broker at some point has told their boss to go F themselves. I don't need you. And that is why they went out on their own and became a broker. What is this override for? I don't need your marketing. I don't need your guidance. I don't need this, that. which I think is wonderful. I did it in a very polite manner at one point, but it also, like, you have to think about if that is the average group of people you're dealing with, which is awesome, how do you communicate effectively to them in matching that level? And I think it's something that you did. And Katie, you took a very, very different approach. And something I've always admired and respected deeply about you, and frankly, and this is true for both Anthony and Katie, I believe this deeply. I wouldn't be up here, and this would not be happening if it wasn't for both of them. And what they started and what they continued, and specifically something Katie did, which was pushing other brokers out into the forefront and putting them in the spotlight, myself being one of them. Is that, like, tell us about that. Tell us what you were thinking, what you continue to do, and if it's something you're doing in your current role as well.
Yeah, no, I think that is probably the best way to describe what I believe in my personal leadership style. I'm definitely a lead from behind. I think there are a lot of people who are doing incredible things who maybe don't have the skill set or the access to build their own stage or get out in front of larger audiences of people, but they deserve to be heard. And I also know that for me personally, the most effective leaders that I've been around are ones that I can connect with in some way, whether it's shared perspective, shared experience, shared mission, something where I can say, I understand why they're thinking the way that they're thinking, and I want to emulate that same model because I want to get to where they are. And I think for a group like mortgage brokers that are often bundled together in one single description, but truly replicate thousands of different business models and represent so many different styles of thinking, it's the only channel in the industry that is actually as independent as we claim it to be. Your business model is very different from Anthony's. There's not a single person in here who runs their business like Brendan, and there's not a single person who runs their business like Anthony, or like Paige, or like Cheryl, or fill in the blank, right? And so it was important for me stepping into a role knowing that I'm not a loan officer. I never have been. To step into a position to lead loan officers when I didn't have that shared experience and shared perspective, it was important to find people who represented the best values of our channel and represented the best of what mortgage brokers can be. And that was finding people like Brendan and finding people like Janine Kempfer and finding people like Jamie Kavanaugh and being able to elevate their voices because they are the people who you share experience with. They are the people you share perspective with. I can connect more with people like Phil Shoemaker, right? We come from the lending side. I understand why he's thinking. I can emulate his business model, but I can't tell you what to do or how to run your own business. I can, however, find people who are running businesses really well and find a way to give them a bigger platform. And I think that's always and will always be the way that I prefer to lead. Brendan and Anthony know this. I would rather sit behind a desk and never be at an event again. I don't crave the spotlight. I don't want to be up here, and I don't think I'm the most effective leading from a stage. I do think I am the most effective leader when I can find people who deserve to be heard and make sure they have the platform to do so.
I got to tell a story.
Please, stories. Let's go.
Oh, no.
So if you don't know, the way that, we stole Katie, I was, Pacific Union Financial was a big wholesale lender in 2018? And they were on some rough times, and they had some technology that they wanted to present to me because we were building Arrive, and they wanted to pitch me at that time on, potentially taking that technology to be part of Arrive. So Katie comes in, does the presentation. She knocks it out of the park. The technology I thought wasn't the best, but I thought Katie was amazing, so I hired her to come lead at Arrive. But the first week that Katie came to Philadelphia, this is like, she's coming from a very corporate environment. She knows what I would say. But like very corporate environment, Pacific Union Financial, she's coming to work with me. And the first day of work, it's like 6 o'clock, and she's
jolting.
packing up her stuff. And I'm like, hey, what are you going to do? She's like, oh, I'm probably going to go back to my hotel room. I was like, do you know anybody in Philly? And she says, no. I was like, well, what are you going to do in your hotel room? She's like, I don't know. I was like, why don't you just stay here and fucking work? And from that point forward, Katie worked till whatever time I left. If it was 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, she just worked. And, to me, her tenacity and her work ethic and all that stuff, I got to see it for, I guess, 2 years before while she was at Arrive and then AIM and then eventually took over.
And yes, Katie works harder than anyone I've ever met before. People ask how I do it all. I'm way lazier than you think I am. That's why I focus on efficiency. But Katie's absolutely amazing. And if you catch Katie at the reception later, you should ask her about that part of the story about wearing a Dallas Cowboys sweater in a Philadelphia cab and what happened to her.
Learned that lesson very early, very early.
What Katie talked about, though, in spotlighting others and the importance of it, you're going to be hearing about it, but you're watching it happen today at the back as well. There is a reason that I'm going to be moderating as few panels as possible. I'm moderating one because we had somebody not be able to make it at the last minute. You're going to see more of Jerry Robinson. You're going to see more of Nick Framarini. You're going to see more of all these amazing leaders that we have, more Gabe Veal, because the goal of the back is not to be a cult of personality or survive one person or another. Katie stepped down 3 months ago. The mission continues. This is not about one or two people and being the Brendan and Katie show or the Brendan and Rachel show. It is about being an institution that brokers can rely on for years and years to come, and people can come and people go. Most of you probably couldn't tell us who the CEO of the NBA right now is. His name is Bob Brooksmith. He's amazing. He's really smart. He's going to retire one day, and none of you are going to know it, and the NBA is going to keep the mission, and we want the back to be the exact same thing.
Well, and I think when you're talking about responsible leadership too, and ethical leadership, whether it's an association or a business, the best leaders are the ones that build people around them to eventually be able to replace themselves, right? Like we were having Noelle McDonald is here for my team. She's back there, say hi. She was asking this question yesterday to a handful of us and saying, how long do you stay in a certain role before you know it's time to move on? And everybody had different perspectives and different answers, but mine always came back to, once I feel like I'm not being challenged anymore and I'm not learning anything from the people around me, it's time for me to go do something else. When I've mastered it and I've gotten all the knowledge that I can, it's time for me to go. But you can only do that if you've built people around you who can step in and replace what you were doing. And I think Anthony's done a great job at that. I would not have been able to take over at AIM had I not learned so many things from him when I was there. He wouldn't be leading the way that he is at UMortgage today without putting people around him on his leadership team who can eventually take over roles and responsibilities that he's currently tackling. And I think Brendan can say the same. He might do it more through technology than people, but it's always about being able to make sure you continue to evolve as a leader, because once your perspective stagnates and you're not learning anything else, you can't lead effectively anymore, because everybody around you is continuing to learn and evolve. And you have to challenge yourself in those roles to be able to do the same, but you've got to have a really solid team of people around you who are being elevated while you are leading, so that when it is their time to step up and step into those positions, they're not starting from a place of being behind the eight ball. They're coming in with credibility, and they already have experience, and they already understand what it takes to navigate some of the waters that are a little tricky when you are having to lead in a public way.
I'm asking this question because I want to know the answer of it, and it's off script, but what are some of the ways, either or both of you, I'd like you to answer this, that you help build up the bench? And when you have identified people on your team that you want to put out there more and you want to take on more responsibility or be more public or whatever leadership is to your company, how do you train them up? Is it baby steps? Do you throw them into the deep end?
I think it's a conditioning exercise. It's not like a single thing. I think for me, it's putting people under pressure. And it's letting people fail. I mean, that's a big part of this is, empowering them to make decisions and run with the ball. And sometimes they knock out of the park, sometimes they fail. But, creating an environment where feedback is expected. There is no, version 1.0 is final for anything. I think if you create that environment, people are conditioned that improvement is the expectation. I think, realistically speaking, for the people that I've had the most success developing, it's people that really can tolerate some pressure.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty intense person to work with. Katie always had the analogy of it's like working for the sun. It's like the closer you are, the hotter it gets. To me, it's all about, seeing what people can handle. And if they can't handle it, they'll tell you that, and that's fine. A little bit of a slower pace for development, but I do see a lot of people give up on people too early. I think people just have different paces, and you just have to keep challenging them and showing them that you have confidence in them. I think that's the biggest thing is if they don't feel like you believe in them, then they're going to stop, believing that in themselves. So believing in them more than they believe in themselves, and then pushing them to do more than they expect of themselves is key. So that's always been my approach.
Before you answer, because I want to hear from you too, when they do fail, how do you communicate to them? Because you need to be critical, right? But like you want to be encouraging, but also like you expected them to fail, maybe not in that exact moment. So how do you balance, and I want to hear you answer this too, because how do you balance like giving them the feedback they need without being too harsh and keeping them motivated to keep pushing if they can handle it?
It's very circumstantial. So honestly, it's all situational. I mean, depending upon the fuck up, to be honest with you, I mean, just being honest, like you have to own it, and you have to really clarify, like, if they don't think it's important to you, then they're not going to think it's important. So I think memorializing it contextually in proportionate to how big of an issue it is, but then sitting there saying, okay, now what are we going to learn from this? How are we going to do this better in the future? What would you have done differently? I think right away making them go into solutions-focused mindset of just like having to rethink through the situation. I think the biggest thing that I've realized about people is it is a skill to anticipate outcomes. It's a skill to be outcome driven, meaning like, hey, most people it's like, I got a deliverable, I got it across the finish line, I did my job. That's not, that's really the great people are the people that think through evolutions of cycles of like how you go from a great client experience to a great retention experience to a great, getting referrals from that client. So for me, it's like you're constantly training them to think differently and think more longer term, and it's a challenging situation.
Good.
So I'm going to tell a story now. That first year that I was at Arrive, I think I was probably, maybe 6 months in. I don't even know that I'd been there 6 months. And I think Anthony's perspective at the time was that maybe I wasn't challenging myself enough. We had certain deliverables we needed to meet. We weren't hitting those timelines. And at the time, being 28 years old, I was sitting there thinking, I did my job. These are other people on the team. They don't work for me. They're my peers. They're not doing their job. And instead of Anthony going back to them and saying, here's what I expect, he tried to fire me twice. He sent me emails and he was like, if you can't get this done, then you shouldn't be working here anymore. And both times I came back the next day and I was like, screw off. I know that I'm good at this. I know that I can do this job. I'd never been pushed in that way before, and I do think it's a skill to recognize and understand who is capable of taking and tolerating that kind of leadership. But that's what I needed. I was an athlete my whole life. Like, telling me you're going to put me on the bench, you're going to cut me from the team, like, not a chance. It's not going to happen. I am not going to let you do that. I am going to prove you wrong every single time. And he knew that. He saw that. And I think I learned a lot about understanding individual drivers and how people think and the things that matter to them. For me, what mattered was always getting better and proving that I could contribute to the team and that I deserve to be a part of the team. But for somebody else, it's earning a living, it's having a flexible lifestyle, it's feeling an emotional connection in their role, it's being mission driven and feeling like they're doing something incredible for their community. But I think to be an effective leader and to build up other leaders, you have to understand what drives people and what motivates them, and you have to challenge them in unique ways. I mean, 3 years ago, you were ready to say no to joining the team at AIM, but there were things that I knew mattered to you and things that I knew that we could build if you felt like you were a part of it, and that made you want to grow as a leader yourself. And I think that's such an important thing to recognize. What drives you doesn't drive everybody. And if you're trying to challenge other people in the way that you would want to be challenged all the time, you're going to hit a dead end more often than not, because you don't have that shared perspective and you don't have those shared experiences. So I think being able to sit back and look at what motivates someone, what matters to them, and why do they make the decisions that they make, then you can really build up and train an army of people who are capable of stepping in and leading and expanding in their own ways.
I'll put one more on that because I did this to Brendan last week, just for fun. Because even though he's never worked for me, it still feels like, you run back, you kind of work for me. But it's just that's the way it is.
He found out very quickly that I in fact do not.
It's a servant job. So I sent him a message on Thursday morning at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was reviewing this panel and the questionnaire, and I said, basically, did you put zero time and effort into this? Do you care at all about your attendee getting any value out of this session? Do you want me to rewrite the questions and do this for you, or do you not have enough time? And I was dead serious. And the reason why is I want to make sure if people are traveling to Washington, D.C., when it's 40 freaking degrees out, I want to make sure that we give them something that's worth giving. Of course, he got very fired up. He got super fired up.
That text got a phone call. We escalated it very quickly.
But like, to me, I think that's part of leadership, is just figuring out how to get more out of people. And it's not in a negative way. Like, I react very well. Like, whenever I've gotten pushed, like, anger is a good emotion for me. It gets me very focused. Like, I can focus and work days at a time. And Brendan and Katie are both two people that obviously respond the same way.
Yeah, I have perspective on that story. And yours as well. It wasn't no, it was, I would never say yes to something like this quickly, but it's going to be a yes, but I have a lot of questions, was what I said. And something that Katie instilled in me, and I'm trying my best. I'm not as good as either of them at this. I'm a terrible manager, a terrible boss, but is that, like, Katie said this to me. She's like, I wouldn't put you in this position if I didn't think you were ready for it and have a good head on your shoulders. And then something she said to me, which I struggle with, because it's a fine balance between when you're in the position of getting propped up and putting in that spot, of wanting to grab the bull by the horns and get out there, but also not wanting to screw up, right? And like, I was checking with her constantly, and something she said to me that resonated deeply was, there's not a mistake that you're gonna make, and you're gonna make mistakes, but you're not in a position to make a mistake that we're not gonna be able to fix. The stakes are high with all this stuff, but like, I've got you, and you know when to check with me, and the times that you don't and you screw up, it's gonna be okay, and we'll fix it. It won't be that big of a deal. And I think it's important to like kind of put people in that spot where you're putting them out there more and more, but you're putting them in a spot where they're going to make mistakes, but they're going to be okay. They're not going to make such a big mistake that everything blows up or anything like that. Yeah. Question for both of you, and grab it first, whoever, but whether it is at your time in leading the broker community, at association or at BAC or at UMortgage or Rocket, what is something that you're most proud of, that you and the group you were leading accomplish, and what was your strategy in getting it knocked out?
So I'll go first. I think the thing that I am the proudest of from the association work, and I think it's something that I'm really trying to bring into the role at Rocket as well, is the diversification of leaders that people have access to. I have long felt that our industry is really lagging when it comes to customer experience and leadership styles. You talk about something that is so important to hundreds of millions of people, being able to buy a home and afford a home, but you look at leadership across our space and everybody looks the same. It doesn't reflect who home buyers are today. It doesn't reflect who up-and-coming loan officers are. And I think the thing that I really wanted to do before stepping out of the association world was find a way to go identify who those people are who, again, deserve to be heard, who are doing the work at the local level, who just need an opportunity to expand their ability to help people and to influence people. I mean, it's not a secret. My entire mission in my career is to help people help more people. It's the foundation of every decision I've ever made, is taking this job or doing this thing or taking on this responsibility going to help people, you guys, go help more people in your communities back home. And to do that, we have to reflect who those communities are. And so I think through programs like the Spark Grant and being able to help hundreds of brokers start their own shop and stay in those shops. It's not just about starting a brokerage, it's about being able to keep it open. Because if you start one and then you have to close down, then you're not helping the people you set out to help. So creating a structure to help people in their first 3 years getting started in communities that don't have access to financial education as often. And being able to find people like you and like Rachel that were doing incredible things down in Houston. I need that water bottle now. down in Houston and up in DC that people may not have heard of otherwise. Thomas Sloan's doing incredible things in New Jersey. Who gets to hear and see him if we don't have a platform to be heard? Peter Carlin is doing amazing things. Scott Valens is building a business that deserves recognition. Those people don't get the same shine if we don't build a platform that allows access for different perspectives and celebrates them, and celebrates the fact that there are diversified business models that have a place in our industry. So that, to me, bringing more people to the forefront, so it's not one person leading, or two people leading, or three people leading. It's hundreds of leaders out there that are now being looked at as those local heroes that have the ability to influence decisions that lenders are making with hundreds of millions of dollars of spend are coming from Brandy and Todd and Tim, right? You guys are the ones that are driving those decisions now, and I don't think that was the case 7 or 8 years ago. And that, to me, being able to bring that to the forefront and being able to have so many people viewed as leaders where it's not a single institution or a single person, it's a collective group of people that deserve to be heard, that is by far my proudest achievement.
I love it. What about you, Nathan?
I would say there's two things. One is definitely technology. When I started this path, like Garden State Home Loans was my first company, and we were doing 300 loans a month at that time, and like just to think about how hard we were working, like literally me and my partner, we would sleep at the office. Like we were literally, it was so hard to scale that business because we had shitty technology. Calyx was literally horrible. It's still horrible. I'll take to my grave. But to be able to bring Arrive to the broker channel, unbelievable for, obviously my business, but so many other businesses. But more than anything, that created a competition of other technology companies innovating, and LendingPad and all these different things coming forward, which was, all of a sudden the script got flipped that brokers had the worst technology to, within a matter of years, like they have the best technology, and that's a competitive advantage. And actually, it's very hard to catch up on that competitive advantage now for the bankers. So that's one that to me is the biggest deal, because that actually impacts all of our businesses. I think the community piece to me is like, you can't understate the value of exposure. Like for me, the reason why I dropped out of school when I was 13, like literally come from nothing type of family. In order for me to elevate over the course of my life, I had to get exposure to certain people. And each time I thought I was the man or doing great, making tons of money, then I got exposure to somebody that was really the man, and they're doing it much, much better and at a higher level. I think in the broker community, what we've created is an environment where people just got exposure to each other. Yeah. And all of a sudden, the guy that was sitting in his basement originating 2 loans a month starts to see, oh, that's the best practice over there. That's what the guy across town's doing. All of a sudden, he wants to do 4 loans a month. People start to stop fearing hiring a processor in LOA, and they start to look at it and say, oh, that other guy did, and look how it worked out for them. So I don't think you could put a premium on the impact of exposure to elevating everybody.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, when the Brawl Facebook group first became a thing, like I'm small broker. It was me and my mom. That was it at the time.
I remember our first event in Atlantic City.
Oh yeah, me too.
There were some memories there.
There were. That also is a reception conversation. But I was, and I felt isolated. I mean, I loved it. I'm working with my mom. We're doing great. But immediately I'm like, these are my people. This is my community. I can learn from people like Todd Bitter. And I answered my phone a little bit more often, and now I answer it a lot less. But I'm competitive, and I think most of us are. And I have I had no one to compete with at McKay Mortgage, right? It's just me, and now I have a bunch of other people to compete with, and talk shit to, like Eli, and Tom Sloan, who says he's going to beat me every year for the last 3 years. Still hasn't happened, but I love him. Yeah, absolutely. Community is always important, but especially for a group of small businesses and a group of people that didn't feel it in other ways at the local level. With the time we got left, anything you regret? Anything you would do differently as your time as a leader?
I mean, I think hindsight's always 20/20, right? Of course, Looking back now, there are decisions that I would have made differently with the information that I have today that I didn't have back then. But I also think you have to you have to accept and be okay with the decisions that you did make in that time. And I know where my intentions were. Everybody else may not have always been aware, but I know what they were. I know my close friends know what they were. And I'm proud of what we were able to do with what we had access to. And I'm proud of what I think we're going to be able to do going forward. This is not the end by any means. We're not talking about things in the past as though we've moved on from them. These are ingrained in the way that we're going to lead and the things that we care about going forward. But I don't know. I don't think I would change anything.
I love it.
I do have to say, I told Anthony when we were standing outside, if you had told us 5 years ago that the three of us would be working for the companies and in the positions that we're in right now, you probably would have been institutionalized. But I think a lot of that comes from being able to grow while you lead and having people see that leadership is an evolution. You don't have all the answers. I've never had all the answers. I still don't. I screw up and make stupid decisions all the time. But to learn from them and to be able to be a better leader tomorrow that's the name of the game. And I think my experience so far has certainly led me to where I'm at. And I think the experiences we're creating right now are going to lead for the next 5 years.
I love it. We're going to do a quick informal announcement. There will be a formal announcement of this next week, and you might have saw the signage on it. As all of you are aware, Katie and I co-founded the Back Together, and she stepped down a couple months ago to take a position with Rocket that she was, while we're telling stories, very scared to tell me about. But I was immediately thrilled, not only for Katie, but frankly for the broker community. It made my life a little more difficult in the short term, but that's okay. Her position at Rocket, ask her about it. But she's not going anywhere. I mean, she's literally right here. She's still in the community. And most importantly, she's still going to be advocating for brokers at a company with unbelievable amounts of resources. And you're going to meet some of them today and tomorrow. Like Rocket is down here in DC constantly, and they're going to be advocating for brokers as well. And they've done a lot of cool stuff over the last couple of years that they haven't done the best job talking about, and Katie's going to fix a lot of that. And we're really, really proud to announce that Rocket has come on as a sponsor of the Back, which we love it, yeah. We are going to roll into a break, a planned 15-minute break. We're probably going to shorten it, so do not go far. We're working on getting more water. We'll have a jug or bottles or something. In the meantime, there's coffee down the hall. Grab one of the cups, fill it up at the water fountain if you need it. But do not go far. We're going to get back to it very, very soon. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, guys.